Our speaker is Sandra Langeslag from University of Missouri, St. Louis, United States. Today she presents her talk on the topic, Comparing Love and Addiction, Subjective Feelings and Event-Related Potential Responses.
Hi, my name is Sandra Langeslag, and I'm an associate professor at the Department of Psychological Sciences at the University of Missouri in St. Louis in the United States. And I'm happy to tell you about my study, Comparing Love and Addiction, Subjective Feelings and Event-Related Potential Responses. So people seem addicted to their beloved, and several reviews have been written about the striking similarities between romantic love and drug addiction. But to my knowledge, no studies have directly compared the two. So that's what I wanted to do in the current study. So one aspect we compared romantic love and drug addiction on is subjective feelings. And so as we know, craving is a key symptom of drug addiction. And people who are in love also seem to crave their beloved, since they want to be with their beloved as much as possible. They think about their beloved all the time. Although I'm not really aware of many researchers using the term craving in the context of romantic love. Another type of subjective feeling is how pleasant and arousing people feel. And we know that drug users rate drug-related pictures as highly pleasant and arousing. And also, people who are in love rate pictures of their beloved as highly pleasant and arousing. So this led me to the first research question, which is, how do self-reported craving, valence, which is pleasantness, and arousal differ between the beloved and drug cues? We also know that drug users have an attentional bias for drug cues and that people have increased attention for their beloved. Now, attention has been studied using event-related potentials, which is the electrophysiological response of the brain to a certain event, in our case, a stimulus. And so you measure event-related potentials by putting a cap like this on a participant's head and clicking electrodes in it, and then presenting them with stimuli and calculating the average response of the brain to certain classes of stimuli. Now, the beauty of event-related potentials is that they consist of different components, different ERP components, and each component reflects a different cognitive process. And there are at least two components that provide information about attention, which is why I selected that as a research method for this study. So the first ERP component that we use in this study, because it reflects a form of attention, is called the early posterior negativity, or the EPN. It is a negative effect in the event-related potential, and it happens around 225 to 300 milliseconds after stimulus onset, and it occurs over the parieto-occipital scalp. Here's what that might look like. So this is a previous study in which they tested people who were addicted to cigarettes, and they showed them pictures of cigarettes, neutral pictures, pleasant pictures, and unpleasant pictures. And on the horizontal axis here, you can see time in milliseconds, and at 0, the picture started to be present on the screen. And on the vertical axis here, you see microvolts, which is a measure of the response of the brain. And as you can see here, the cigarette pictures, which is this black solid line here, the response to the cigarette pictures was a lot more negative than the response to the neutral pictures. And so this difference here is the early posterior negativity. And you can see here on the scalp topography, so this is as if you're looking at the participant from behind, that it was greatest over the parieto-occipital scalp. In one of my previous studies, I've shown that a similar effect is found for pictures of the beloved. So in this study, I showed pictures of the beloved, the friend, and a stranger. Here you see time again on the horizontal axis, and on the vertical axis, in this case, it is flipped. So positive is plotted downwards, which is sometimes done in ERP studies. And you can see here that the solid black line is the beloved. It is more negative than the response to the friend or the stranger. And here you see scalp topography. So this is as if you're looking at the participant from behind. You can see the ears here. You can see that negativity in response to the beloved compared to the friend, or the beloved compared to the stranger, was greatest over the left lateral parietal scalp. Now this component, the EPN, reflects early automatic attention that we give to stimuli that are evolutionarily relevant. And these studies show that people have more of this type of attention, both for drug cues if they are addicted to the drug, and for the beloved if they are in love with that person. But to my knowledge, no studies have compared the two directly. Another event-related potential component that is important for our study is the late positive potential. It is a positive deflection in the ERP, and it happens between 400 and 1,000 milliseconds after stimulus onset, and it is greatest over the parietal scalp. So here again is a previous study with people that were addicted to cigarettes. And you can see here that the black line, the response is more positive for pictures of cigarettes, the black line, than pictures of neutral objects, which is the green line here. And in my previous studies, I've shown several times now that the response, positive is plotted downwards here, that the response is more positive in response to the beloved than the friend or a stranger. And here you see that the effect is greatest over the parietal scalp. This is as if you're looking down on the participant's head, and here's the participant's nose. This LPP, or late positive potential, reflects motivated attention, which is attention that we pay to information that's emotionally salient. And these two ERP components really reflect different cognitive processes because they don't tend to correlate with each other. So these two studies here show that people have more motivated attention to drug cues of drugs that they are addicted to, and that people who are in love have more motivated attention to their beloved than to their friend, for example. But again, I'm not aware that any studies have directly compared the two. So that led me to the two final research questions, which is, how does early automatic attention as indexed by the EPN differ between the beloved and drug cues? And how does motivated attention as indexed by the LPP differ between the beloved and drug cues? So for this study, we've tested 16 participants so far. Data collection is still in progress. But we recruited participants who were both in love with someone and also addicted to some drug. We decided to focus on vaping addiction in this particular study, which is e-cigarettes, because that seemed practical, because vaping is legal in Missouri, which is where we were collecting the data, and because it's also very common. Lots of people vape. We didn't think vaping was special in any way, special kind of addiction, but it was a practical decision. Our participants are between 22 and 49 years old, and there were 6 women and 10 men so far. These people had been in love with their beloved on average for a little over 6 years, with a wide range, so ranging from 4 months to 228 months. 13 of the 16 people were in a romantic relationship with their beloved, and 3 were not. And of the people that were in a relationship, 3 were dating, 3 were cohabitating, and 7 were married. On average, the participants had been vaping for a little over 3 years. And of the 16 people, 14 vaped nicotine, one vaped THC, and 1 vaped something else. We measured craving for a vape and craving for the beloved using a questionnaire on, originally the questionnaire was called Questionnaire on Smoking Urges, the brief version. And it contains questions like, all I want right now is a cigarette, and I could control things better right now if I could smoke. We modified this questionnaire in 2 different ways. One's to measure craving for a vape. So we replaced the word cigarette or smoking with vape and vaping. And then we created another version in which we replaced cigarette or smoking with my beloved. So we would ask, all I want right now is my beloved, or I could control things better right now if I could be with my beloved. And the average score on these 2 types of questionnaires that measure craving was significantly different. So people reported higher craving, 5.2, for their beloved than craving for a vape, which was 4.0. And so this showed that people felt more craving for their beloved than for a vape. We also showed people various stimuli. So we showed them 30 pictures of their beloved. We show them 30 pictures of vaping strangers, and you can see some examples here. And we show them 30 pictures of neutral strangers. And then we recorded their EEG to get at those ERP components while they looked at all these different pictures. So the results showed that, so here is the EPN, so positive is plotted downwards, And you can see that the response to the beloved was more negative than the response to the vaping strangers and the neutral strangers. And you can see here that that negativity was greatest over the parietal, lateral parietal and occipital scalp. So there was an EPN for the beloved compared to the vaping and the neutral strangers. So that shows that people had greater early automatic attention to their beloved than to vape cues. Here is the LPP. Again, positive is plotted downwards, and so you can see here that the brain's response to the beloved, which is this solid black line, was more positive than the response to vaping strangers and neutral strangers. And here you see the scalp topography, and you can see that that effect is maximal over the parietal scalp. So this shows that people had greater motivated attention for their beloved than for vape cues. Also, we have people rate their valence and arousal, where valence is pleasantness and arousal is activation. And it turned out that people felt most pleasant while looking at pictures of their beloved and equally pleasant when looking at pictures of the vaping strangers and neutral strangers. Also, people felt most aroused when looking at pictures of their beloved, intermediately aroused when looking at pictures of the vaping stranger, and least aroused when people were looking at pictures of neutral strangers. So there seems to be overlap between romantic love and addiction, but we need more direct comparison data, and this study is one of the first to do that. And in the current study, romantic love was more intense in terms of craving, valence, arousal, and the two types of attention that we measured than vaping addiction. This was surprising to me because you might think this may be the case, especially in this early stage love where people are, very euphoric and nervous and butterflies in the stomach. But about half of our participants had been married to their beloved already. And so these were not necessarily people that were in these early stages of love, yet they reported greater craving and more pleasantness, greater arousal, and showed more attention to the beloved than to vape cues. Now, you may say vaping addiction may not be as strong as some other addictions, such as maybe cocaine or heroin. And I agree that seems that way, but research has shown that vaping addiction has very similar biological effects as other addictions. However, it would be very interesting to replicate this finding with other seemingly more serious addictions. And ultimately, if we know more about the similarities and the differences between love and addiction, we may be better able to help people cope with heartbreak. So if we know how romantic love and addiction are different or the same, then maybe coping with heartbreak is just similar to detoxing from a drug that you are addicted to. And so maybe then we can use the same therapies and treatments that we use for drug addiction to heartbreak, for example. Thank you so much for your attention. I would also like to thank Caitlyn Harriman, Laura Thomas, and Jaslyn Rice, who are students who have been involved in this study. I have a lab website and a lab Facebook page, and of course an email address, so you're welcome to contact me with any questions. And then of course I'm happy to answer any questions you may have during the conference. So thank you very much.